Robert Coover was more than just a writer. He was a pioneer, a risk-taker, and an unflinching voice in the wilderness of American literature. Known for his complex narratives, inventive storytelling techniques, and biting social critique, Coover's work stands as a testament to the power of fiction to push boundaries and challenge our perceptions of reality. From his early beginnings in Charles City, Iowa, to his final years in Warwick, England, Coover's life journey was marked by a relentless quest to redefine the possibilities of fiction. Today, we take a look back at his profound contributions to literature, his impact on generations of writers, and the legacy he leaves behind for future storytellers. Robert Lowell Coover was born on February 4, 1932, in the small Midwestern town of Charles City, Iowa. Growing up in a rural community, Coover developed a keen awareness of the social and religious forces that shape human life, themes that would later recur in his fiction. After obtaining his BA from Southern Illinois University, he went on to earn an MA in Slavic Studies at Indiana University, demonstrating a diverse intellectual curiosity that extended well beyond conventional literature. His literary career began in earnest in the 1960s, during a period of cultural upheaval that provided fertile ground for experimental writing. Early on, Coover was drawn to themes of myth, storytelling, and American identity, all of which would become hallmarks of his work. His unique voice emerged at a time when American literature was poised for a transformation, and Coover helped lead the charge into new narrative territories. Coover's first novel, The Origin of the Brunists, arrived in 1966, and it immediately established him as a distinct voice in American literature. The novel centers on a small coal mining town shattered by a disastrous mine collapse. Out of this tragedy, a cult-like religious group, the Brunists, rises, led by Giovanni Bruno, a survivor of the collapse. The novel uses the community's grief and desperation to explore themes of fanaticism, belief, and the interplay between individual and collective identities. It's a dark, satirical look at the ease with which ordinary people can be swept up in movements of extreme belief. The book's critical success, culminating in the William Faulkner Foundation Award for Best First Novel, marked Coover as a daring new talent willing to grapple with complex social issues using the tools of fiction. 2 years later, and Coover took a radical turn with his second novel, The Universal Baseball Association, Inc. J. Henry War Prop, published in 1968. In contrast to the grounded realism of The Origin of the Brunists, this novel dives into the mind of J. Henry War, a lonely accountant who creates an elaborate baseball simulation game to escape the monotony of his life. The game, which initially serves as a mere pastime, gradually consumes Henry's reality, blurring the lines between fiction and life. Themes of godlike control, the power of narrative, and the dangers of obsessive imagination permeate the book throughout. Critics and readers alike praised Coover's willingness to subvert conventional storytelling by placing the reader within the subjective mindscape of a protagonist who teeters on the edge of madness. In this novel, baseball becomes a metaphor for the randomness and absurdity of existence, a motif Coover would return to throughout his career. Although The Origin of the Brunists and the Universal Baseball Association appear vastly different on the surface, one rooted in small-town realism, the other an exercise in surreal fantasy, they share a deep concern with how narratives shape reality. Brunists tackles the power of communal stories, showing how a community can collectively rewrite history to fit a new narrative. In contrast, the Universal Baseball Association is an intensely personal exploration of how a single individual's storymaking can spiral into dangerous obsession. Stylistically, Brunists has a darkly satirical tone, rich with detail and character study, while Baseball Association uses a more disjointed, fragmented structure to capture Henry's deteriorating mental state. Despite their technical differences, the holistic reception of these works reflected Coover's growing reputation as a master of blending style with substance, offering readers an experience that was at once challenging and rewarding. Among Coover's most celebrated works is his short story, The Babysitter, first published in 1975. A prime example of his ability to disrupt traditional narrative structures, the story takes place over the course of a single evening, chronicling the seemingly mundane events surrounding a babysitter looking after children in a suburban home. However, Coover fractures the narrative, presenting a series of alternate possibilities that blur the line between what is real and what is imagined. The story's chaotic, multi-layered form forces readers to question the nature of reality and the reliability of storytelling itself. The Babysitter has become a touchstone for discussions about metafiction and remains a staple in anthologies of postmodern literature today. Coover's 1977 novel The Public Burning is perhaps his most ambitious and controversial work. The novel fictionalizes the real-life events of the Rosenberg trials, presenting a surreal account of Cold War hysteria through the eyes of none other than Richard Nixon, a recurring figure in Coover's fiction. Nixon serves as a conflicted narrator, alternating between self-pity and bombastic patriotism. The novel's grotesque portrayal of American political culture, its blending of public spectacle and private torment, and its audacious use of real historical figures earned both acclaim and legal challenges. The book's publication was delayed due to fears of libel, and its polarizing reception reflected Coover's unique ability to provoke and challenge societal norms. In other words, he was really good at pissing people off, and he loved it. Now, why was Nixon present in so much of Coover's work? It's generally accepted that it is emblematic of the author's fascination with power, hypocrisy, and the dark underbelly of American politics. Nixon, often depicted as a caricature of his real-life counterpart, becomes a symbol of the corruption and moral ambiguity that Coover saw as endemic to political power. In works like The Public Burning, Coover transforms Nixon from a mere historical figure into a larger-than-life representation of American paranoia and deceit, underscoring the surreal and performative aspects of political life. Throughout his life, Coover was not only a prolific writer, but also an influential educator. He served as a professor of literary arts at Brown University for over 3 decades, where he inspired and mentored countless students. Coover's teaching emphasized experimentation and pushing the boundaries of conventional narrative form, encouraging students to explore their own unique voices. He was known for fostering a collaborative, open-minded environment where young writers could challenge themselves without fear of failure. His students included several writers who would go on to have significant literary careers of their own, many of whom cite Coover's mentorship as instrumental in their development. He also played a critical role in developing the university's literary program, turning it into a hub for aspiring experimental writers. Robert Coover's influence extended far beyond the classroom. Among his most famous students are Jeffrey Eugenides, whose Middlesex won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and Edwidge Danticat, the Haitian-American author known for her poignant depictions of the immigrant experience in works like Breath, Eyes, Memory. Coover's dedication to nurturing literary talent is probably best encapsulated by his support of innovative projects, such as Brown University's electronic writing program, which explored the possibilities of digital fiction. His approach to mentorship was characterized by an emphasis on risk-taking and embracing the unknown, principles that left a lasting impression on his students. In 1987, Coover received the prestigious REA Award for the short story, an honor that cemented his status as a master of the form. The award is given annually to a writer who has made a significant contribution to the discipline of the short story as an art form. Coover was recognized not just for his stylistic innovations, but for his ability to use short fiction to probe deep into the psychological and social issues of American life. His story collections, including A Night at the Movies and Prick Songs and Descants, pushed the limits of what short fiction could achieve, blending surrealism, satire, and metafiction into concise yet powerful narratives. Winning the REA Award highlighted Coover's role in transforming the American short story, influencing a new generation of writers who saw in his work a blueprint for breaking literary conventions. Long before digital literature became mainstream, Robert Coover was advocating for the use of technology in storytelling. In the 1980s and 1990s, he was one of the earliest proponents of hypertext fiction, a form of interactive literature that uses hyperlinks to allow readers to navigate the narrative in a non-linear fashion. His 1992 essay, The End of Books, called attention to the emerging field and predicted that digital narratives would eventually transform traditional literature. How right he was. Coover's interest in electronic literature led to the establishment of the electronic writing program at Brown, where students could experiment with digital storytelling techniques. His pioneering support for electronic fiction underscored his belief that storytelling should evolve alongside technology, a perspective that placed him at the forefront of literary innovation. Robert Coover was known for his sharp, evocative prose and his ability to encapsulate complex ideas in deceptively simple language. Here are just 3 quotes that capture the essence of his work. Number 1. Nothing is so sad as the loss of one's story. You know what I mean? Stories can be false, even true, but without them we're lost, we're just wandering through the darkness. This quote, in my opinion, reflects Coover's preoccupation with narrative and its fundamental role in shaping human experience. Number 2. Reality is a collapsing structure of preconceived notions. This is a statement that epitomizes his approach to fiction in general, constantly questioning and undermining the stability of the quote-unquote real world. And number 3, there is no end to fiction, just as there is no end to life. This is an aspirational quote and an expression of his view that stories are living entities, constantly evolving and impossible to pin down. Each of these quotes showcases Coover's deep engagement with the power of fiction to manipulate, distort, and ultimately create reality. In the end, Robert Coover's legacy is one of courage and transformation. He defied traditional boundaries, both in his teaching and in his writing, and his work stands as a challenge to any writer seeking to say something truly new. From the dark satire of The Origin of The Brunists to the labyrinthine narrative structure of The Babysitter, Coover's stories remind us that fiction is an art form without limits, that it can be twisted and turned in infinite ways to reflect the complexities of life. His contributions to postmodern literature have earned him a place among the greats, and his dedication to nurturing the next generation of writers ensures that his influence will be felt for years to come. As we remember Robert Coover, we celebrate a life devoted to expanding the boundaries of storytelling, forever reshaping the landscape of American literature.